So yesterday I created a post about Vice President Kamala Harris and my viewpoints on her policy stances.
A feeling of relief and enthusiasm that the guy that can't walk and talk, that's dazed and confused, the guy that mumbles and bumbles and stumbles, oh, thank God it's not him. It's a honeymoon. It's a sugar high. But mark my words, it will be short-lived.
You know, I want to thank everybody for the positive feedback, positive comments, and the great dialogue I had with even people who disagree with me. I appreciate you being respectful. And I had a couple of haters. And then I had a couple of gentlemen say, hey, how on earth can you even consider voting for a convicted felon? Because if you're not voting for Harris, you're voting for a convicted felon. And I just had to sit here and stop. Before I even go forward, there is no way in hell I am going to vote for Kamala Harris. Once again, I'm not going to disparage her. I'm a black man. I respect black women. I will never, ever disparage a person. But there is no way in hell I would ever vote for Kamala Harris. That's just a no-go right there. Primary reason is she has been reckless and irresponsible. She was in charge of the border, and she left us open to danger and a whole host of other issues.
Kamala Harris owns every single one of the Biden-Harris policy failure, all of them. But it's especially true at the southern border, because in 2021, Kamala was appointed a, quote, border czar, and from the outset, she pledged to address the root causes of illegal immigration and put an end to the crisis. That's what she said. And by the way, Kamala did next to nothing. The border crisis exploded. It has become the single biggest national security threat in our lifetime. Look at your screen. Illegal immigration is now 10 times worse under Kamala's, quote, so-called leadership. More unvetted Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, illegal immigrants have poured across this border than the entire population of New York City. There are 40 U.S. states with a smaller population than the influx of illegals under Biden and Harris. The cost to all of you, every taxpayer, is astronomical. The risk of terrorism and crime is unthinkable. It's never been higher, according to Director Wray of the FBI. Murders, rapes have occurred as a result of their open borders. The odds of a 9/11 terror attack, again, in the words of Director Wray, have never been greater. Joe and Kamala, let me be very, very clear. Kamala, like Joe, you have blood on your hands. And yet for a while, Kamala couldn't even be bothered to visit the border. You might recall. Take a look.
The notion that the border is closed. Why should they believe you when they know that people are getting in?
Well, Lester, here's the thing. I've been working on this issue for a very long time.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
I'm here in Guatemala today. At some point, you know, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Solid, logical reasons why I cannot, in good conscience, allow her to California, my America. I won't do that.
Now, ultimately, the border czar was shamed into making a quick stop in El Paso, but far away from the epicenter where the real crisis was happening. Now, that was her first and only visit to the border. And a year later, in 2022, she told Chucky Todd that the border was secure. She lied, flat out lied, just like she lied about Joe Biden being so cognitively sharp and so aware and so on his game. That was a lie, too. Take a look.
Would you call the border secure?
I think that there is no question that we have to do what the president and I asked Congress to do. Is the first request we made. Pass a bill to create a pathway to citizenship. The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border is secure?
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration. But there are still a lot of problems that we are trying to fix.
We have a secure border is a lie. That wasn't the only blatant lie that Kamala told about the border. Here's your border czar smearing Border Patrol. Remember when she falsely accused them of whipping migrants? Another lie. Take a look.
I've been very clear about the images that you and I both saw of those law enforcement officials on horses. I was outraged by it. It was horrible and deeply troubling. Human beings should not be treated that way. And as we all know, it also evoked images of some of the worst moments of our history, where that kind of behavior has been used against the indigenous people of our country, has been used against African Americans during times of slavery.
All right, this was a complete hoax and lie. The images in question featured Border Patrol agents on horseback using reins to control their horses. Kamala didn't care. She is always, ready to defame those who keep our country safe.
I'm going to be retired one of these days, and I need a safe place in America to go. And if she wins the White House, I believe America's going to turn into a rolling dumpster fire in the dry forest, without question. That's why. So I'm only left with two other choices: RFK. And RFK, I think he's a really nice guy, and who you guys label or tag or branded as the convicted felon. So let me talk about that for a second. I'm never going to call Donald Trump a convicted felon. You know what I'm going to call him? I'm going to call him a manufactured felon. Okay. What Alvin Bragg and the DOJ did was one of their members quit the DOJ and work with Alvin Bragg to take an obscure misdemeanor, okay, and bump it up to 34 felony counts. This is the same DA in New York who is taking violent felons and turning them into misdemeanors. But with Donald Trump, they take an obscure misdemeanor and bump it up to 34 felony counts. That is wrong. That is the weaponization of the justice system, and we all know it was for political reasons. I wouldn't care if Donald Trump was convicted of a crime if Joe Biden was charged with a crime when he had classified documents. And not only did he have classified documents, but he shared that classified information with a ghostwriter, okay? Sold us out. But he gets a pass because he's old and couldn't recall stuff, right? I wouldn't have a problem with Donald Trump being convicted, right? If Hillary Clinton would have been convicted. This woman literally obstructed justice and destroyed crucial evidence when it related to the classified emails. Do you know what would happen to me as a police officer if I destroyed evidence? I would be fired and put under the jail, and I should be, okay? As a police officer for 28 years, my code is this: I believe in fairness. I don't give a damn if you're black, white. I don't care if you're rich or poor. The law applies equally to everybody, okay? And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. I don't believe in selective enforcement. What happened to Donald Trump was selective enforcement, and it was also BS, okay? It should not have happened. So I'll never sit here and join you guys in calling him a convicted felon. I'm going to call him a manufactured felon, right? Speaking of convicted felons, guess what? I'm a law enforcement officer who prided himself not only on aggressively putting a lot of felons in jail, but also helping a lot of felons when they got out. If they wanted to change their life, I was the first one there to step up and try to help them get housed, help them heal. And a lot of them have turned their lives around and are doing incredible things, and I have faith in them. I have faith that even though Donald Trump is your convicted felon, that he's going to do a better job on the economy. He's going to do a better job protecting the people of this country. He's going to do a whole lot of things better than Kamala Harris, who has nothing but a track record of failure. And that's my stance, okay? And that's where I'm coming from, folks. So please don't ask me that stupid question again. Yes, if I have two choices, RFK and Donald Trump, and I'm paying attention to both men, and I'm going to vote for the best individual who I think is going to turn things around for our nation. I don't have to like them. They don't have to like me. But if their policies are on point, I'm voting for them.
Top Democrats are now planning to pull the rug out from under Vice President Kamala Harris. And this is the consensus from some that believe that top donors are not welcome to the idea of her going against Donald Trump. Similar to how President Biden was pressured to move away from his campaign, this belief is that a coup will also be used against Kamala Harris, a coup that could be led by former President Barack Obama and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Now, you guys might remember this last year, but Nancy Pelosi had trouble calling Harris as the best running mate for vice president. During a CNN interview, the former House Speaker was asked very bluntly, is Kamala Harris the best running mate for President Biden? To which she answered, he thinks so. Which is kind of an indirect way of saying no if you think about it. So that means that Nancy Pelosi, a top Democrat, was not willing to endorse Kamala Harris as a vice president. And so now people expect her to be the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party? Yeah, right. Now, what's even more, there's another top Democrat who has not endorsed the VP. That top Democrat is none other than former President Barack Obama. Many people believe that former President Barack Obama still has a lot of pull from behind the scenes. Now, it's also why many analysts believe that Kamala Harris will be a placeholder until they find the right person.
What I found interesting too from Barack Obama's statement this morning, and bearing in mind it's the first public statement that we've seen from Barack Obama in a while. Obviously, he talked highly of Joe Biden's decision, but what was interesting there is that there was no endorsement of Kamala Harris. What do you make of that? Is that a suggestion to you that Mr. Obama wants an open convention?
Yes, I think absolutely it is. I mean, he would have endorsed her if he wanted her to be anointed, if you like. Definitely. I mean, Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi have made it clear to colleagues that they want to see an open contest here. They don't want Kamala Harris just to be put into the position. They think it's not a good look for that to happen, firstly. And secondly, of course, there could be another candidate who might be more effective against Donald Trump than Kamala Harris. But you've really got the Democratic Party split on this, Pete. A lot of people, Bill Clinton, for example, has come out in the last hour or so and has endorsed Kamala Harris. There's a lot of people who want the party just to coalesce around Harris. They think that's less divisive. They think it's the only way to go forward without more divisions within the party. But then, of course, you have the Barack Obamas and Nancy Pelosi's who want an open contest. And so that's really the big debate that we're going to see play out here in the next few days in Washington.
Now, it's apparent that both Pelosi and Barack Obama are very hesitant to pick Kamala Harris so hastily. By the way, guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like button for the video. Really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and sharing these videos. It really does help me out a lot. But this could be an indication that the pressure on this administration is not done just yet. In fact, it's not enough that Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi leaked private conversations that they had with President Joe Biden, further fueling the public's awareness of his mental state. But we could actually get to a point where even Kamala Harris is replaced as their presidential nominee as we draw closer to the DNC.
I just had a moment to go back over the statement from Barack and Michelle Obama, and they are supportive of President Joe Biden's decision not to seek re-election, and they praise his outstanding track record as president. And yet a paragraph sort of buried in this long statement, the Obamas say, "We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges." Why aren't the Obamas backing Vice President Kamala Harris?
Now, Kamala Harris, on her end, she wants to win this nomination. She wants to probably be able to say that she deserves it and it wasn't just handed to her. But what is an open convention? Well, if the Democratic National Convention starts with no clear nominee for president, candidates who want to be nominated will work to convince delegates. This will then be decided by the convention, with these delegates voting for who they want to represent their party for November of this year. A candidate would have to win around 1,986 delegates to declare the majority. Now, if the plan wasn't changed, President Joe Biden would have been heading into the DNC with about 3,900 pledged delegates. Now, if we go with history, doing this might prove to be catastrophic for the Democratic Party. The nomination fight back in 1924 took 103 ballots to nominate John W. Davis for president and Charles W. Bryan for VP. They went on to lose the elections during that year, though. Democratic strategist Cornell Belcher says that the passing over of Vice President Kamala Harris after Biden's sacrifice would ensure that Donald Trump takes back the White House. He says that if Democrats go into a nomination process, then it would be the equivalent of disrespecting and stepping over the first black woman vice president of the nation. Whew! Which leads us to believe that racism and sexism will likely be used as tools by the Harris campaign to make sure she's their nominee. Although it's kind of hard to say that when the two top Democrats that are trying to push you out are Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. But there's another Democratic leader who's yet to back up Kamala Harris. That person is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. So Jeffries has also been very vocal about removing Joe Biden as their presidential nominee. The same can be said for Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who by the time that I'm doing this video has yet to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris. These are big time players within the Democratic Party who have ignored Biden's endorsement of Harris. And while she has the support of the Bidens and the Clintons, it's still concerning that she's not hearing from these top allies. But of course, things can change. They could be endorsing Harris right at this very moment for all I know. But you gotta wonder, why didn't they do it right after President Joe Biden pulled back on his campaign? You see where I'm going with this, right? One source very familiar with the thinking of top Democrats told The Hill that the news from President Joe Biden was emotional and that they would need time to process this information. But you also have to realize that these were the same people who were itching to get rid of Joe. This means that the party is now divided. You got the likes of Representative James Clyburn, Pramila Jayapal, Rose DeLauro, Jared Hoffman, and they're all supporting Kamala Harris. Governors like Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, Phil Murphy as well. The same could be said for Bill and Hillary Clinton. All of these big names went and endorsed Harris in a heartbeat. So it's kind of hard to believe that there are those within the party who would need a little bit of time to quote unquote process this information. And just to add a little bit more chaos to the mix, with Obama and Nancy Pelosi not endorsing Kamala Harris from the start, it gives way to people like Senator Joe Manchin. Granted, he's an independent right now, but a report from Axios has just reported that it's rumored that he's considered re-registering as a Democrat to run for president. Now, how crazy is that? Now, one guy who has been a thorn in Biden's side during this entire term is back now to cause problems for his vice president. So Joe Manchin is retiring from the Senate by January next year. Him running against Kamala Harris won't come as a surprise. Many probably would see him as the moderate option next to the VP.
That she has the nomination. Who else may jump in?
We're looking at a Democratic Party that's convulsing tonight. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, who just registered as an independent, a longtime centrist Democrat. CBS News has now learned he is considering re-registering as a member of the Democratic Party to consider standing for the Democratic presidential nomination, in effect challenging Vice President Harris for that nomination.
But what do you guys think about that? And do you believe that Kamala Harris will actually carry the torch for Democrats this November? Which brings me to a very important question. Will Joe Biden continue his duties as president? Or is Kamala Harris taking over early? Now, I reacted to this in a previous live video that I did on here that you guys absolutely have to check out. I also go through Donald Trump's live reactions to President Joe Biden stepping down from the 2024 presidential election. Now, as always, I really appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you for liking the video and subscribing, and I'll see you on the next one.